welcome. And now we're the chair across the aisle, the podcast for real people, real stories, and meaningful talks about the world around us. But what's most significant today, a couple of things that are really significant, is the exciting news, the incredible accomplishment. Your portrait has just been placed in the Smithsonian Institute. And I thought that was just great. The recognition's incredibly deserved. I just thought, this incredible person has done so much, and this is just a great recognition. And you literally, I think in the last interview, equated it with receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm right there with you. I think it's equivalent almost.
Well, I was just when I was approached about the portrait museum, I just almost couldn't believe it.
And it's a great portrait. I saw the
Oh,
portrait.
they
I
did a
loved
great.
it.
David Lentz did a wonderful job. They gave me a choice of three artists to pick from with a bunch of pictures of their work, and I chose David.
Oh, and he did an incredible job. So they literally gave you a choice of, so you knew heads up. You got a
Oh,
heads
I
up.
knew I had to keep this secret for over a year because it takes time to make the portrait, and I had to keep it an absolute secret. Now, I did not know who the other awardees were until they put the formal press release out. And that's
Right.
when I found out that Steven Spielberg was also getting it.
And that's just great because, to be just side by side with Steven Spielberg, and I actually think you've accomplished more than Steven Spielberg, but
No,
that's just me thinking out loud. But
no, I think Steven Spielberg's accomplished a lot. And I had to ask him this one question, if it was true that he snuck into Universal Studios. Yes, the story gets even better. He was 17 years old. He went on the tour, and when they had a bathroom stop, he got off and hid in the bathroom and ditched the little tour tram. And then he got in there walking around in there. But one of the reasons why he wasn't kicked out right away is he had something to offer. He'd made some movies. He knew something about movie editing. And he got to talking to people there, and they gave him some gate passes, and he made friends with the security guard. Basically, made his own internship, and he was 17 years old.
wow. And he actually that made a significant difference in his life and his career and everything else, right?
Well, yes, it did, and he's dyslexic. And one of the other things we talked about, I mean, I can't do higher math. A lot of people thought I was just stupid and wouldn't amount to anything, and a big motivator for me was to prove I wasn't stupid when I did the dip fat projects that were shown in the HBO movie. And I did a thing where I made a kind of my own internship at the local Swift beef plant. There's a scene in the HBO movie where I go up and I get the editor's card. The editor of our State Farm magazine was at a cattle event. I went and got his card, and then I produced an article for them. And that led to becoming livestock editor. And that got me into so many things. Now, there's a scene in the HBO movie where I meet the plant manager's wife. They changed it a little bit. It actually was the insurance agent's wife, of all things. And I met her at an Arizona National Stock Show party that my press pass got me into. So working for that magazine really helped. And then once I got into the Swift plant, I had to prove I could do something for them. And I noticed they had some gates that would bruise the cattle. But due to my work for the magazine, I knew the guy who ran the dairy processing plant. And they have this great big huge plastic hose they use on the milk trucks. And I thought that's going to work well on the gate. So I go over to the dairy processing plant and to get some of this hose, and we put it on the gates at the Swift plant because I had to show them that I really had something to offer. And I worked on a major piece of equipment there. I went over there every Tuesday afternoon for 3 years, made my own internship.
That's just incredible. And when you just think outside the box, you see this hose, you think if I wrap the bars with this hose, the bar isn't going to hit the cow or the
That's right.
horse.
That's absolutely right.
It's this hose, it's this softer hose that's going to make us. And that's the thing that we need to see in this world more of is that type of thinking, and it's just another incredible story of yours where you made the significant contribution without the significant expense of it all.
No, that was used dairy hose that they just threw away.
Right.
So it cost nothing, but I could see how it would work when it was put on these gates. And and I, then I also helped them with some non-slip flooring. We didn't have all the flooring options we've got now. Um, all these really nice rubber mats you can get. None of that stuff existed. We had steel bars. You had to take a jackhammer and roughen the floor. We took a jackhammer and roughened the floor.
Yeah, that's kind of
And
like
I was involved with doing that. They The other thing that helped me was I went up and I got the card. And there's a lot of kids today that'd be too chicken to go up and get the card. Selling stuff for charity when I was a kid, that helped. In the 50s, kids had to be hosts and hostesses at parents' dinner parties that taught you how to talk to people. And it's now official. Bill Gates is autistic. And he had to do the party hosting. He had to host bridge games, his mom's bridge games. But that taught him how to talk to people.
and that's and it's just such a huge contribution when you think of, like you said, you're telling these kids, look, you got to get outside, you got to get out of your shell, and here's how we're going to do it. So you're going to say, hey, welcome to this party. Hey, this is your table. Hey, we're going to be doing this tonight, or we're going to be hosting this band tonight. And you're really opening up this child's idea of just communication and just reaching out to people. And it's just a
Well,
great.
I'm finding since COVID, it's very difficult to get students to talk in class. And many professors have told me this is a problem. And I think it's a big problem. Would today's student go up and have gotten the card? That scene is in the HBO movie, and it's absolutely true. That happened. And getting that card, that opened so many doors, becoming livestock editor for that magazine.
It introduced you to a lot of important people in the industry all over the place. That magazine was read by everybody in the industry,
Yeah,
and
it
they
was.
got to know Temple Grandin.
Well,
And
that's
you,
right.
and all by just saying, "Hey, can I have your business card? Can I, can I talk, can I talk to you for a minute?" And and that's something we need to teach. Communication is key. Communication is everything.
Well, I also made myself a good livestock editor, and I got a reputation for when I summarized speeches at meetings, they were summarized accurately.
And like you said, the other thing too is not only are you the editor, but you're this incredible writer, right? And so nowadays, it's another thing. It's just systemic of what's going on today. When we think of COVID and kids actually not going to physical campuses, they were staying home. They've lost that communication skill. Now we've got AI, and the communication skills are starting to go away. How do we get back to that?
Well, I think you need to be doing things like when I was 9 years old, I was selling candy for charity. You got to go up and talk to people. And working with that magazine got me into so many different things. Meeting the right people. I figured out very early on that the right people could open the door. But then you had to do something of value for them.
Yeah, they definitely want a return on their investment, right?
Yeah, that's right. And there was, I had my problems. There were people that were bad to me. That was mostly middle management. The
Well,
top people liked me.
well, you can always assume if somebody's negative towards you or bad to you that they're threatened by you. You can always
That's
come
right.
to that assumption. You can always somehow, some way, it all leads to that. You're better than them, so they're gonna belittle you to the point where they're gonna do the best they can to reduce your credibility to make themselves look bigger and better than you are. But you face those challenges over and over again in life to the point where you are Temple Grandin. You are the person that's accomplished more than most.
Well, and I had to work really hard. And there was a lot of good people that helped me. Let's start out when I was a child. I was a nonverbal autistic child. Great early intervention, great speech teacher. Mother taught me to read at age 8. There's a lot of controversy now about different reading. I'll tell you how I learned how to read. She got a book worth reading, like The Wizard of Oz. I already knew my ABC song, and I think all little kids need to sing the ABC song as it has half the sounds in it. She pins the alphabet up on the wall and says, okay, A has two sounds, A and A. Then she tells me about the long and the E on the end, things like that. She'd read a whole paragraph, and then I'd read just a little bit, all done out loud, just sounding out words. And I went from no reading in third grade to sixth grade level of reading on the standardized test. I see all this complicated stuff about teaching reading. This was not complicated. And it was basically 4 afternoons a week after school for about one semester. And I very quickly went to higher level reading. It was definitely a phonics learner. And then I had a wonderful science teacher who got me motivated to study, gave me interesting projects to do. And then there were good people out in the industry. There was Norb Goskowitz, the manager of the Swift plant. He was another really good mentor. And the engineer, Harley, was also really good. There were feed yard managers that really liked me. There was a contractor that seeked me out to design projects. He was starting a small steel and concrete business. And he seeked me out, and I designed jobs for him. And he showed me how to set up a business, which I had no idea how to do. These were
So
all very, very helpful things.
absolutely. And just something you just said so important is he showed you how to set up a business. Now, I have been beating this horse to death that in our K through 12, somehow, some way, within our K through 12 system, we need to instill life skills, set up a business, buy a house,
Yeah,
balance a
that's right.
checkbook, and we haven't yet. So I said, okay, and then comes the argument that the teachers union is one of the most powerful unions in the country. They're not going to change. So I've said, let's do it outside the school system. Let's make it not mandatory. Let's not make it a part of the curriculum. Let's make it voluntary. And I just want to know your thoughts on that. Like so you
Now, I
had this.
don't discuss any politics at all, but I was one of the kids that was a phonics learner. I look up stuff online on phonics. I never saw as much complicated rubbish because the way mother taught me was so simple. I knew my ABC song. I think all children need to learn the ABC song. That I knew. And when you go through the ABC song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, if you take that and dissect it, you've got half your sounds. Then she pins the alphabet up on the wall and just goes, okay, A has two sounds. She made me memorize them. A and A. And then B, ba, C, ka. E can be E or eh. And get me memorize the sounds. And then she just would read a paragraph and then I'd sound, it was all done out loud. I'd read a little bit of a sentence and then she'd remind me, remember an E on the end? What happens to the A for made? Mad, there's no E on the end. Made, there's an E on the end. She'd cue me, say, now what about the E on the end? What's that do to the vowel? And I very quickly went from absolutely no reading in third grade, I was 8, to sixth grade level of reading very, very quickly. It wasn't that difficult. And that was how I learned how to read. And I became a book lover after that. Oh, I loved going to the library and taking out books.
That's something else we're missing out on nowadays is we don't go to the library. I remember when I was a kid, just like you, I couldn't read, and the teachers were just like you, were convinced I'd never read. I was actually dyslexic, and my dad taught me how to read, and and then when we go to the
How,
library,
how
like
did how'd your dad teach you how to read?
so he had a simpler way. Like he would literally like he worked in New York City and he would stop at newsstands and buy these little books that one particular newsstand would sell. So one was like Peter Pan the police officer. And we would just read it together. Like you said, it was a great story. It was
It was a
worth reading.
story.
Yeah, it was just a great children's story, but it was worth reading.
It was
And I
worth reading, where Dick and Jane was not worth reading.
right,
See Dick run, run, run. That's not worth reading.
right.
The Wizard of Oz is worth reading.
Right. And it was such a great story. I still remember, I don't have the book anymore, but I remember my kids had like mystery reader. So the kids never knew who was the parent that was coming that day. And then you arrived, you walked in the room, and they were like, oh, that's Jeff's dad. And I brought that book, Peter Pan, the police officer. But it was really a fun book to read. So that was
Yeah,
the big cue was, is it fun to read? Is it worth reading? Like you said. And then ultimately I learned how to read. And it's so my not at all political, but we had dedicated parents who tried to contribute to our lives. But there are kids who just don't have that, and some of them are autistic.
well, and
So
it was probably the amount of time spent on this was about 45 minutes to an hour after school, 4 or 5 days a week, and for one semester.
yeah,
It wasn't that difficult, and I didn't realize until many years later when you sing the ABC song, it has half the sounds.
right. And that's just and it got you reading from you went from
Oh,
not
I went
reading.
from no reading. I was 8 years old. And I remember mother and the teacher got together and they were saying, well, we've got to do something about Temple's reading. She's going to be really in trouble if she doesn't learn how to read. And for me, the reading out loud, it's all done out loud. And then I had to learn to read silently, and I would whisper to myself. Then I got to where I could read silently, but it was all done out loud, very, very simple, and then you'd learn, the some of the rules, two vowels together, the E's are E, where let's say I said fed, that's one E, fed, I fed the dog, that would be the short version of the vowel.
Wow. And then like you said, when you whisper to yourself, it gives you that sense of reassurance. Even though you're trying to read to yourself, you're just trying to read the book to yourself. You're just reading the book, but when you whisper to yourself, it gave you a sense of reassurance that you were getting it.
Well, and then I stopped doing that, but I had to have done
Right.
that.
Ultimately, you grow out of it,
No,
right?
I grew out of it pretty quickly, and I became a really, really good reader. And then you get into some of the questions about reading comprehension. And I always tell parents of autistic kids, let's start out with just the facts. Jane went to the store and bought bread. Okay, now I have to know what a store is to understand that. I don't know what a store is, I wouldn't understand that. I have to know
Right.
what bread is. Okay, very simple. Let's say Jane, that's the lowest level of reading, vocabulary level, and you have to know those words. But what if Jane went to the store and bought cake mix and candles? What is Jane planning to do? Okay, that's the next level up. Well, she's planning to have a birthday party.
Right.
You see, that's the next level up. And, so I suggest let's just start reading at the vocabulary level. I remember you going to Japan and they don't have lawns. So let's say they said, well, we had a picnic on the lawn. There's kids in Japan wouldn't know what a lawn is. They don't have them.
Which is
You
funny
see,
because
at first you have to know what a lawn is.
but we always assume everybody, like you said, the kids in Japan don't know what a lawn is. And then when you think of it, like the bonsai, the whole idea of the bonsai was they don't have a yard, they don't have a lawn, they have a small patio. So they're recreating sort of like a big yard configuration with smaller and you just take too much for granted, right?
Well, and I'd always say, well, let's just start out with okay, the Jim went on a trip to Antarctica. Okay, then you might have a question, why would heavy jackets be needed in Antarctica? Well, to answer that question, you have to know that it's very cold there. See, that gets up to the next level of thing. You have to have some knowledge about Antarctica being cold to know why you'd have heavy jackets there.
And then it gives you the point of deductive reasoning, which really leads you to great success in life. Like you said, you can start reasoning things out. Like you can start looking at things because you're an engineer, not only a professor. You've created so many things, and when you look at them, and it's all based on your initial education.
Well, the other thing I learned to do was to sell my work. Like this is one of my drawings right here, and I would show people my drawings. And because I was socially awkward, and I learned to show off drawings and photographs of things I had designed. That's how I sold projects. And then when I wrote for the magazine, I got a reputation for being a decent livestock editor. Yeah, she may be weird, but she doesn't misquote people at the cattle feeders meeting.
Which can be a point of contention, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because when you misquote somebody, you're done. Your credibility's shot.
Well,
But
and
when
you
you,
also learn the difference between straight reporting and editorial too.
right,
And I understood the difference between that.
and you understood there was a clear differential, and you understood it, and you never crossed that line, right?
That's right.
And that's just incredible. And like you said, and then you could show these projects, these well-received projects, just like you did that design. And you had this, like everybody received you, especially upper level. Everybody received you well. When they saw you, when they met you, they wanted to hire you. They always wanted to engage with you and hire you and get them on their team, right?
Yep, that's right. And then you have some people where I found when it comes to, let's say, improving cattle handling, for example, um, top management has to want to improve their operation. I don't care what the thing is, top management's got to be behind improving stuff.
But
Otherwise, you
you
can't get anything done.
but you sold them on the idea that improving their operation would not only be better for the cattle, it would be better for their business model. It'd be better. It would be a huge
Absolutely.
return on
Absolutely.
investment.
Most people would buy that, and then there are a few jerks that wouldn't.
Right. They wouldn't. But ultimately, like you said, at this point in time, even and we use McDonald's freely. They send out they may
Well, the
farm out.
McDonald's thing, what happened with the McDonald's thing, we had 74 plants on the McDonald's approved supplier list. Well, 3 plant managers got removed by McDonald's. And
Right.
the situation at that plant improved overnight.
Because the obstacle was identified, the
Yeah.
solution was identified.
Well, and McDonald's had enough economic clout to go to these were all corporate plants. Go to the corporate office and say, well, Mr. Jones needs to get removed.
Right. And it was all you're saying here. Look, they wouldn't have taken this action if you didn't point out to them how much more there was to gain by getting it
Well,
right.
no, the other thing that made it work was to get 74 plants in compliance with good welfare standards did not require rebuilding everything. Only 3 of the plants out of 74 had to buy expensive equipment. Everybody else we fixed with repairs, non-slip flooring, and training.
And better training and
And,
better
and
shared
repairs, and a
practices
lot of repairs, and keeping equipment repaired.
and keeping it maintained.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the cattle were doing better and the production was doing better. So
Yeah,
you
and it did better. And I had equipment to sell. I actually did reverse conflict of interest, where I bent over backwards not to sell them equipment. How could I make the equipment they had work? In most of the cases, I could.
that's just
There were
and
3 places where it was just impossible. They had to do very expensive stuff. Everybody else did. It was amazing what some non-slip flooring could do on an unloading ramp, for example.
right. So now I have a question because I actually interviewed a lady named um, Diane Delano. She runs the Wild Horse Rescue right here, like 7 miles from my house, and she
Okay.
was talking about how they're clearing cattle from areas in like Wyoming, how and they're using fast-paced helicopters, and she was saying just slowing down the helicopters made a significant difference in
Well,
the
you
way.
slow them down. You see, it's a matter of how they use helicopters. They can be used right or used badly. And you just get everything running and do it too fast. There's a saying in the cattle, slow is faster,
Right. And
because
then
you
she
don't just get them running and breaking through all the fences and everything else bad.
Right, and they were trampling each other and breaking through all the fences, and she was saying that's just how they just ran these helicopters at full throttle.
That's wrong.
That's
That's
just
wrong.
wrong,
That's
absolutely
wrong. The
wrong.
proper way to use a helicopter, you've probably seen some of the diagrams from Bud Williams where you go back and forth on the edge of the flight zone. Helicopter used right does that. You go back and forth on the edge of the flight zone. You don't circle them. They'll gather together, and then you impinge on the flight zone some to get them to move. But then if they start to run, you back off. You
Because you
back off of
don't
that
want them
helicopter.
running.
Now, where you've really got into a mess with helicopters, and I've watched some of the videos that BLM has. They're doing a really good job out in the pasture, but they don't like to show going in the corrals because I think they don't have a big enough corral. And if the corral's too small and they run in there, that's going to be a mess.
It's going to be a
Yeah,
mess.
they don't have a big enough corral because they don't want to haul a zillion portable panels out to the middle of nowhere.
Right. Ultimately, the construction doesn't get done, and then, like you said, you bring out all those panels cost a fortune, so that
Well,
just
yeah, and you've got to have big, heavy trucks to haul them in.
which
Uh,
cost a fortune.
and so I know exactly what's wrong, and then they'll edit it out. They don't show you what happens in the corral. They'll tell you exactly what happens if the pen ain't big enough, and you are going to have problems because then you can't respect the flight zones.
Well, do you ever
But
engage in?
it's a matter of how you use the helicopter, and you can get people out there on horses yelling and screaming, and that can be a big mess too.
Yeah, the helicopter was sort of what she was talking about, but yeah, you have people on horses corralling them and running them off, and like you said, yelling and screaming, sometimes even
But
firing
you
off
see, you've got to get
shotguns in the
away from
yard.
the first thing you got to do in cattle handling is calm down. They've got to calm down. The other problem is once you get the horses or the cattle all scared and excited, it takes 20 minutes for that animal to calm down. We had a situation in our equine center where the stupid news photographer had terrified some of our horses with a drone, just going right at them like this. And I said, it's going to take 20 minutes for them to calm down. And we timed it. In 20 minutes, they became rideable.
But why did he do that? Just for fun? Or
I
is
don't
he
know why he's just stupid. And what had happened is a news crew, and we'll leave out whose news crew it was, major network. And they came and interviewed me, and I went off and I got interviewed. Then they were supposed to saddle up two horses in Western, two of our horses in Western. And I get done with the interview, and I come out, and Adam, my colleague, is holding two rearing horses, all tacked up in Western tack. And I see a drone up there in the air. And I go, we're not going to be riding these for about 20 or 30 minutes. They calmed down. Then we got on them. After they calmed down, this idiot took the drone and went right at us like a plane coming in from a landing. Lucky we weren't killed.
right? Because you were literally riding him at that
We were
point.
riding them, and I was just furious. And I use this now as an example in my class of what not to do. Now, if you take a drone and you just put it up in the air and let it hover, they ignore it.
Right.
Now, if you take a drone and you come down very slowly like this, horses and cattle will look up at it. But if you come in quick across like this, they freak out. No, I was furious. And this drone operator, he made sure I couldn't get up to him to scream at him because I was going to chew his butt out for that. It was
But
so
that was
incredibly
literally
dangerous and stupid what he did.
But that was literally the second time he made the same mistake within, like you said, within that 30-minute time frame. So was he doing it deliberately?
Only I thought he was trying to get good pictures, but he was going to get us killed. I couldn't believe it. I got done with the interview. Adam's holding two tacked up in Western saddles and bridles, rearing. Both horses were rearing. And I saw the drone just up there hovering at that time. And I said, we're not riding those for a while. And I've always said to my students, it takes 20 minutes to calm down. And I timed it. They were rideable in 20 or 30 minutes.
And
And then
you,
he came at us with the drone. Now, if he just kept it hovering, it would have been fine.
but he came zipping down again.
He came swooping down and went that into us. We were so lucky we weren't bucked off.
Right, you could have been thrown off, and
Oh
then
no,
it
this
could.
is so stupid and dangerous. And I now use this in my classes, and also showing that they did calm down in 20 minutes. Of what not to do with things like drones. Like, please do not use them in an indoor riding arena. Please, please, no, no.
Uh,
Because you can't get the drone far enough off the ground just to hover. If it's high enough up and it just hovers, it's fine.
and it can take great pictures. I mean, you're literally
Oh, they
talking
take
about
fabulous pictures.
from
Don't,
hovering.
but put it as you can't in an enclosed riding arena, you can't get the drone up high enough. No, please do not use drones to photograph horses in enclosed riding arenas. Please do not do it. Now, what this stupid guy had done was all outside, but
But like you said, you wouldn't use them inside. And actually, they have plenty of places to just place stationary cameras and inside
well,
facilities
inside
anyway.
they can put cameras up like the big coliseums. They've got lots of, you can go up in the high bleachers and put cameras up there. They got catwalks going across the ceiling you can go on.
So, and all this information, everything you're offering is available. You're not just teaching your classes, you're willing to share this with anybody in corporate America
No,
that
I have a
wants to
lot
hear it.
of cattle information on my website, and I find I still have to teach basics. Like I went to two beef plant startups, beautiful plants. They've got a lot of my equipment. And the most basic things. Okay, if you want the cattle to go up the single file chute, you don't stand in front of it and tap its butt with a flag.
And
That doesn't work. Okay, that's absolute basics. People still have to be taught that when you have new people coming in.
and there's no reason to believe that they know that in the beginning.
They
Like
don't
you're
know it. They just don't know.
no.
They don't know. There's another thing you do that's kind of counterintuitive. If you walk quickly by cattle, when you cross the shoulder, they go forward. It's kind of counterintuitive. You walk in the opposite direction to get them to go forward, but it works. Then you show somebody how to do this. These are absolute basics. But getting back out there in these two brand new plants, realizing that, yeah, we got to teach absolute basics. They don't know.
You've got to start with the basics.
Yeah.
And you're literally Temple Grandin. You're the person that got on the ground, laid on the ground, and watched the cattle. And you were the one that came to the realization that the flashing lights and stuff were affecting them.
Well,
You've
the
got
other
all
thing
this
is, other
knowledge.
thing we've got now is uh, we've got all these LED lights that are doing all kinds of weird things because cattle don't like the dark. And I used to just take an incandescent lamp and put it on a chute entrance, and they just would go in. Now you put an LED on a chute entrance, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And they've got all kinds of weird flicker stuff. And um, my student just did a little study giving, I thought it was flicker. So we bought a cheap light that flickered, and we tried to buy one the same color that did not flicker. Well, the steers picked the cheap one, and the heifers could care less. I don't know what's going on here. We're going to the physics department after the New Year's to try to figure out what's going on with some of these lights. They're weird. But I know that sometimes you can put an LED light on a shooter and it doesn't work. And I don't know why now. I think some of it has to do with flicker, but there's something else. Why did steers care about it? Heifers don't. I don't know.
But you're gonna figure it out.
We're
Or
going to figure it out.
you're gonna
We're the
figure
physics department. We just used phone apps to measure things, like for light meter. No, we're going to go. We've already got a nice lady physicist already lined up that's going to. We're going to take the lights over to the physics department after school gets started, after Christmas vacation, and really figure out what's going on. And we've got to use better stuff than apps.
Absolutely. And then let's just be clear. When you do come to some conclusions, they will be available on your
Oh, they'll be
website.
available. Oh, yeah, because we'll have
Right.
a paper
Because
published, and I spend a lot of money making papers open access.
right. And you don't charge for any of that. That's all open access, right?
No, I pay to make a journal article open access is $2,000 to $3,000 per paper to make them open access, and then anybody can look at them.
Anybody can read them. Anybody can, and especially people in the industry are literally
But we got
offered.
weird stuff going on with LED lights now, and if you take your phone, your regular iPhone, set it on regular slow motion video, and you photograph a room, you can find the LEDs that obviously flicker. But there's weird stuff going on. We had a favorite restaurant, this Thai restaurant we'd go to. I found out two of my students got migraines in there. Well, they changed the lighting. I don't know what's. It's not going to be our favorite restaurant anymore. So we're not going there again. Well, I've got to go over there and find out what's going on with the lights, what they did. But the LEDs have all these other different variables. And just putting an incandescent lamp on a chute entrance, they used to just work like magic. Now I'm seeing this big expensive LED that they put on a chute entrance and it's turned towards the ceiling because it didn't work.
So the
And
notion is LED saves you money on your electric bill, but when you think
they
of the
do. Well, the trick is we have to find the right LEDs.
right.
We have to find the right LEDs. And I thought flicker was the main thing. But there's also weird stuff with the color balance and a reflected color balance measurement, where we're going to be getting some very high-end professional equipment to look at these lights. And we have to figure out which LEDs are the ones that are going to work.
So let's put this in perspective. Just like you said, you're going to get some high-end stuff. So you're not just going to be spending $3,000 on the paper. You're going to be spending some serious money on the high-end equipment as
Well,
well.
actually, probably won't. The physics department has the equipment.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they have the equipment. We're not buying it. And we're going
Right.
to just take the lights over there and have them tested. And then go to the photography department with some very accurate light meters, and because we used a phone app. And then we just had followed the manufacturer's specification on the color. And they were supposed to be the same.
It's just incredible to think of, and the things that can come out of this. Just like you said, a restaurant could have more
It's
success.
appalled. I found that two of my students got migraines after our favorite restaurant changed their lighting. Just appalled.
And then if you
I
narrow it
am going to
down,
find out what's going on because
right.
I'll be going over that restaurant and we're going to be looking into this, and I want to find out which lights did it. And
And if you
I think,
narrow it down,
yeah, I'm going to narrow it down. I did the lights in that restaurant don't bother me. I'm fine with them, just fine. I didn't even know they'd changed the lighting. You see, I don't, but I told my students, I said, well, my one student says I got a migraine while I was there. The other one says I got a migraine the next day. I'm going, ugh, we're not
That's
going there. I'm
really
not taking you there again.
right.
And,
That's
and
really
I, they had no effect on me. I'm fine. You see, this is where I don't know what's going on. This is why you do research to find out.
it's just incredible. The things are, and
But
then
we expected the cattle to avoid the one that we knew flickered,
and he
the
did.
cheap one.
He did avoid it or no? The cattle did
No, the
avoid.
steers picked the cheap light that flickered.
Okay.
The heifers could care less. And we had a shoot where they'd come up to Hawaii and they could go to the cheap light or they could go to the expensive light.
And the heifers went to the
The
couldn't
heifers could
care.
care less, and the steers picked the
It's a
cheap one that
cheaper
flickered.
light.
And I don't know why. And so after school goes back in session, we're using some very fancy equipment that we'll be borrowing to figure out what's trying to go on with these lights. And then I'm
That's
finding out that our favorite restaurant for two of my students is no longer the favorite restaurant because of lighting, which I didn't even notice.
but they did significant in
They
a
did,
significant
and I'm
way.
going, wait a minute. All right, I don't think we're going to go there for a while. I want to find out which lights did it and try to get rid of them.
And then so that's just incredible that we just had this like I didn't know this conversation was going to cover all this, and I'm really thankful it did because it's great stuff. And
Well, the
and
thing is, it's trying to figure out what's wrong. You see, my next step is we're going to have to evaluate these lamps with equipment better than a phone app light meter and what the written specification from the manufacturer says.
because you don't know what the
I
manufacturer
don't
may
know.
not even yeah you
I
and
don't
they
know.
may
And then I suggested to my student, I said, this is something you need to learn how to do. You are going to go through the website in the physics department, and you're going to pick that phone up and start calling. She found somebody. I said, that's another very important skill for you to learn. Tracking down how to find people who can help you. Have the equipment. We just take the lights over there and they can test them.
wow. And so you've literally taught her about investigative
I
reporting
tell you,
almost.
you're going to get yourself the photography department, the physics department, the greenhouse department. These are all people that know about lighting. And you're going to go through those web pages, look at the research publications, and you're going to pick up the horn, as we used to call it, and you're going to put it right here, and you're going to find it. That's part of your training.
And
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 she did it, but then Christmas vacation started. So we have to wait until everybody's back in school.
get back everybody but get back at it. That's just like me. I'm having trouble scheduling interviews because everybody's on vacation right
Well,
now.
yeah,
But
everybody went on vacation just as we found the person. So as soon as that vacation's over, but it's an important skill for the student to learn. You just go to the physics department, start going through all the faculty and looking at their web pages, looking at their publications. And then you pick that phone up and you call.
well, and this is really a sign of the times. Like you're literally we're back to just old school. Pick up the phone and just call and talk to somebody and keep doing it until you get some answers, till you get some contacts. And
Well, I
that's
had
something
another
I do all
student
the
years
time.
ago. I made her do that for a genetics test for pigs. And she started picking that phone up. And 2 days later, she was talking to the inventor of the perfect genetics test for our study.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very important thing for students to learn. And then you talk to somebody and they say, well, so and so could help you. And then you go to so and so.
I just I just think that's just what I do. I literally email, I call, and it's just like it's just an old school. Nowadays, everybody's like relying on AI to make 1,000 phone calls for them, and everybody knows the minute
Oh,
they
well,
pick up the phone, it's AI, and they hang up.
they hang up. And the other problem is, I had a thing where I wanted to look up, although a little black mouse that got used in an experiment, and he was a number such and such. I don't remember the number. And so I looked it up, and AI said this little black mouse was anxious. I went to 10 mouse websites, and there was nothing in there about that mouse being anxious. I think AI made it up.
It just
And the
created a
other thing I teach
response.
my students is you've got to look at primary sources. When AI aggregates the information, it's not a primary source. I find on medical information, they tend to read a lot of Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Mount Sinai. That's where they get a lot of the information.
Yeah. But
You
that's
know,
where
you've got to
AI
go
gets
back to those primary websites.
like PubMed and stuff like that.
But even just looking up some medical things, and then of course the hospital websites push the surgical solution. Then you go down in some other websites about the, society for this or that, and they'll tell you some simpler things you can do.
That's always been the simpler solutions have always been the better solutions. I remember when I rolled my truck and I went to the doctor and he was like, "You need this surgery on your spine." When I went to physical therapy, she's like, "The surgery is going to just make things worse." And she really helped. And sometimes it's not a matter of surgery. Sometimes it's not that technical. Sometimes it's the simplest solutions that make things significantly better.
Well, I had injured my rotator cuff getting off at airport shuttle, those stupid things, and it jerked my arm back. And they wanted to do surgery, and I looked up a bunch of websites, and I just started doing what I call virtual sling. A motion that hurt it, I didn't do. Like if I put my bag in the overhead like this, that really hurt it. So then I had to learn how to put my bag in the overhead in the airplane with lefty. I became lefty. Heavy doors, lefty for heavy doors, pulling them. Does that hurt it? So I'm lefty now for doors, bag in the overhead. No, I can like hunt it right in the basket on the overhead. I
And
had to learn how to do it lefty because I didn't have the numbness going down the arm, thank goodness. And I just baby it, and I still baby it. I still will never ever use this arm to shove a bag in the overhead.
no, and you resolve the problem without surgery, without painkillers, without all that other
And and it gives
stuff.
me little tiny warnings, and I obey them.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
see it coming. You feel like you said it's just a tiny warning. Oh, this is gonna really
No, no,
if
no,
I get the
and you can't do that. But the overhead thing, and the real heavy doors, where you have to pull really hard, that hurt it. Those are all lefty now.
and you spend a lot of time in airports too, right? You're always
Oh
traveling.
yes, I'm like living on planes, so I got very good at. It took me about 5 flights to perfect the lefty move.
And 5 flights for you is about 2 weeks worth, right?
That's right, because each trip has at least two.
Right.
Every trip has at least 2 flights.
So
Avoid
you're
connecting. Avoid connecting flights like the plague.
well, you don't do your own scheduling, do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do
I
your own schedule.
I don't trust other people book awful flights. I just had a thing. I can't believe somebody booked Denver to Houston via Dallas.
So you
Somebody
literally
booked tickets that dumb when there's a zillion nonstops between Denver and Houston.
right. It's
There's
pretty.
something. I look at these tickets. I go, you gotta be kidding. So we're gonna have a connection in Dallas to go to Houston when you're flying out of Denver.
So did you rebook that or did you get stuck with it?
They were stuck with it, and thank goodness the connection worked. But it was a flight that was booked for my students, so I was not happy about it.
That's terrible because there's no
That's
reason for it. Is it?
terrible.
Terrible.
Because you could miss part of the event.
And on top of that, like you said, it's a connecting flight. You could just go straight and get off the plane and be done with the
You
whole
have
airport
you have
thing.
the thing is on the nonstops, you've got more than one airline to go on
Yeah.
out of Denver. Because I happen to know where all the hubs are, and I know the routing, and I know.
Wait. So what? This is just so. When is the unveiling? I don't want to because we've just had an incredible conversation, but I still want to stay on topic here about when is the unveiling of the portrait?
Well, actually, they had their gala in November, and due to the government shutdown, they had to have it in the old Union Station on private property, and that's when. And about 6 weeks prior to that, they'd announced the four people, and I
So
didn't know about them until I read it in the read it
Steven
online.
Spielberg was one of them. Who is the others?
Jamie with the Chase Bank, and then there was a really lovely
Jamie Dimon.
Jamie Dimon, and then a wonderful Native American poet.
Really? So
Yeah, those
you
were the four choices. Those were the four people. And I learned about them when the official press releases went out.
Because they had to keep it a secret as well.
Oh, they had to keep it a secret too.
Right, right. This is an
Because
NDA, a
they because
non-disclosure
they
agreement.
well, they were working on the portrait a year beforehand. A year and a half before it, David Lentz came and we went out to the experiment station and I sat on the feed trough and letting the cattle lick me. And then we just went on a road straight east and found a crop field out in the middle of nowhere. We took a bunch of pictures in front of it. And that's
Wow.
what he used for the portrait. And I didn't tell anybody, why we were taking the pictures. We said we're just taking some pictures of the crop field and taking pictures of me and cattle at the experiment station.
That's just incredible because you really did good with that secret. Because I've literally rolled out this podcast about a year ago, and you didn't say a word. So,
No,
and you,
we had to keep it secret. And then about 6 months ago, we got to see the painting in an email. And we were told, again, do not post this on social media. It is a secret. So only myself and Cheryl Miller, my assistant, saw it.
you were thrilled with it, right?
Oh, I was thrilled with it. Oh, I
Right.
wrote back and I said, this is absolutely wonderful. No, I had a lot of people say, well, is it a photograph? I said, no, it's not a photograph.
It's a portrait, and it's
It's a portrait.
incredible.
And he just did such a beautiful job.
And it stays on display for 1 year. So I have till November to make it out to the Smithsonian
Yeah, and
Institution.
the government shutdown ended, and then it's back they're in the museum. I think they're on display right now. I'm pretty
They
sure.
are. They are.
Yeah,
Until November, 1 year. But then where do they go from there? Do they travel the country?
I'm not sure what I'm not sure what all they do.
It's going to be there, right where it is right now. I read it because I researched it in great detail. It's going to be there, I believe, for 1 year until
And
next
then I
November.
gave him one of my hard hats that I've worn on a lot of jobs, and they wanted. I had one drafting tool from the 70s that I still actually had it and it wasn't broken. And it was a little plastic French curve. It's for drawing curves in drawings by hand. And I
And
gave him a little yellow plastic French curve, the one surviving drafting tool from the 70s.
now you're on to CAD and stuff like that, right? You're using
Yeah.
computers mostly?
Well, actually, right now I'm not doing much drawing. Lots of times it's like draw it on a piece of copier paper.
Well, I just saw that one you just did, and that was actually like a art pad, and it was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
this was this drawing I just showed you was hand done in the 80s. The thing that I've seen, unfortunately, now with CAD is a real deterioration in the quality of drawings. Concrete work without rebar placement, and this is done by hand in the 80s.
And that covers every detail. Like you said, CAD misses a lot.
Well, if you have somebody that's drawn by hand do CAD, there's some beautiful CAD, but most of the CAD's coming out now is just terrible. Like
Yeah.
they'll specify where the reinforcement rods go in the specs, but they don't tell you, they don't draw it in on the drawing. I had a project about 4 years ago where there wasn't one piece of reinforcement rod drawn on the drawing. I went and drew it in. I said, take this back to this engineering firm, make them draw all the rods in concrete reinforcement.
And it's a huge facility, so they're missing a big
One big
detail.
expensive facility. You've got to show exactly where to place the rod. Then I had another job where I had the cattle handling facility all laid out. This one was a year ago. And I'm very glad that I went back and looked at it. And I took one look at the drawings. I went in the job trailer and I took one look at the drawings and I got, you just changed the lead up chute and made it too short. Well, something happened when they switched something else around and somehow it got shortened. And I caught that the instant I looked at it. I said, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to keep up. The chute's too short in a big plant.
Now, could you imagine if they actually constructed that plant
It
with
would
that
have been
mistake?
a mess.
It would have been a mess.
Absolute
And an
mess.
absolute disaster that somehow modify, some way fix it. It would have been.
But the problem we've got now is they're not putting any detail on drawings. I drew a drawing where a guy welding in the field and a guy doing the concrete work knew exactly what he was supposed to build. I put all the details in there, every weld plate in it, everything.
Wow.
This is where I talk about visual thinking. This is where I get into this book right here, visual thinking. And this is where the non-mathematical side of engineering. And then this is the young reader's version of the book, where I took out all the boring educational policy stuff and kept all the good stuff and put pictures in it. Unfortunately, this book doesn't have pictures because the publisher wouldn't let me have them. They said they were too expensive. I wanted
But
to put pictures in.
those are two good books the kids need. I might get them for my son because he would just be fascinated with,
But I'm
especially the.
very concerned that we're screening out our visual thinker. Because I've worked, I know a guy who's a visual thinker, took a welding class, and he builds beef plants. He can't do higher math. Now you need the mathematician engineer for the refrigeration in the plant. That has to be done by the mathematicians. Then I just talked to a lady and her husband builds standard apartment buildings, 20-story high apartment buildings. He visualized, in the beginning when he started, he got an engineer drawing for the concrete work for standard 20-story high apartment block, as it's called. And he just would use that drawing over and over again. He's got it memorized. He's got the entire building memorized how to make it. He's made a whole bunch of them.
And with that's the one thing with CAD where you have that building, but you can move the entryways, you can move the windows, and with one simple click of the mouse. So that's the one benefit of
But you got to
CAD.
make sure you don't move them somewhere it's not going to work.
Right, that's the issue with CAD, though, is
Well, that's your
exactly that.
problem. I have a thing on my phone here that's a CAD AI thing for our new terminal at Houston for the new airport. And I go, if you build this, it's going to be the biggest mess you ever had. I'll show it to you. This, I gotta see if I can get it to go sideways here. Well, this is the artist's rendition of the new terminal at the Houston airport. Well,
Wow.
that was plastered on a construction wall. And I go, there's something drastically wrong with this. What do you think's wrong with this? Oh, wait a minute, it just
Yeah,
disappeared.
yeah.
How do you think the planes are going to back out?
Right. Or that's even a tight spot to get into to kind
Well,
of, I
they
guess,
can't back out.
right. Or I guess
And
they could hook them to
then
a,
you look at your details here. It has a little, here's a detail, a little tiny mutated jet bridge there.
and and that's what's supposed to pull it out, right?
Well, that's where the passengers would walk on. And then it has no ground equipment in it. But
So
that's a computer's idea of our new airport terminal in Houston. And I'm going, I hope they don't build that. Those planes aren't going to be able to back out.
no, and they're tight in there anyway.
They're
I
too
guess you
tight.
could. They're
They're
too
way
tight
too
there.
tight.
Right.
And and I wouldn't even put that on the wall. And as I was walking through the airport, I go, wait a minute, there's something really wrong with that. Instantly, I saw it. And I took a picture of it. And then I got down to the gate and I go, oh, you've got to be kidding.
And did you reach out to anybody, or is this still
I
a
don't know.
project?
I find a lot of them they're very resistant turf garters.
Yeah, you can see that. They're not
And
gonna.
people are really bad about gardener turf.
Right, absolutely. Especially when they made a big mistake, they don't want to admit to it because it could really could cost. I mean, if you admit to such a big mistake, it could really
Oh, I
cost
can
you
tell you,
credibility.
I've seen there's people the big know-it-alls. I call them the plant wreckers.
Right,
Oh my God,
especially,
they wrecked stuff because they wouldn't listen.
and they just keep moving forward with
And the
their
other thing
crazy.
that concerns me is our educational system is screening out the visual thinkers because we can't do algebra and higher math. But you need us to say, hey, you've got to draw all the reinforcing rods for all the concrete work in that stockyard into your drawings.
Now
You've got to put the rebar in there.
you've mentioned that so many times that in order to get to these classes, you've got to be able to do the algebra and the other, and some kids simply can't, whether it's autism or. But we're really missing out on some
But we're
great
missing out. We're
candidates.
screening out our visual thinkers, and somebody might be to be seen. I realize this. Let's say somebody built that mess that's in that picture. The problem is they don't see it. I I looked at it and I'm going, wait a minute, something's wrong. I was walking by it quickly and I took the picture. Then I got down to the gate and I looked at it and said, those planes can't possibly back out of there. The terminal arms are too close together.
And you spotted it right like that.
Oh, I knew something was wrong with it the instant I saw it. And then I'm realizing, and I used to call this stupid, but what I'm realizing is the verbal thinkers and math thinkers don't see it. Like the chute that was too short, the instant I looked at it, I go, it's too short. That one I caught and they corrected it.
And they corrected it before they
And they
built the
corrected
whole
it.
thing.
Oh,
Before they
thank you.
literally built the
We
whole
we caught it
facility.
before they built the thing. Oh, I'm so glad
Can
I
you imagine
visited.
though the remodel that would have been involved with fixing that problem after
Oh,
opening?
ripping out a whole bunch of concrete would have been involved. It would
And
have
the
been.
hallway and that whole wing,
Oh, let's
that
say for
whole
the airport.
corridor.
Well, what you'd end up having to do is you just wouldn't use one of the side of one of the terminals. Let's say they actually built that, and you've got gate doors on each side of each terminal finger. What you would do is you just would not use the gates on the one side.
So that's just an incredible waste.
Well, yeah, and then they probably have to sell the jet bridges and board the doors up,
Right. And that's a
and you
brand new
wouldn't use them.
airport, brand new
That's
project.
you probably would. Let's say if you actually built that, that's what you'd have to do.
Yeah. So it would just be a waste of a significant amount of the construction project.
Or you might be able to load commuter planes in small ones, well, some of the gates. Then I'd get rid of the jet bridges. They'd have to walk out on the tarmac to make enough space. Oh no, it would. Oh, if you actually built that, it would be a mess.
Just incredible. Just
And I couldn't believe it. And I was just by there the other day. That picture was still there.
well, you
That's
haven't
a
gotten through to nobody yet, right?
well, I don't know. I can't, it's like I figure right now the main things I need to be working on is explaining the importance of visual thinking, showing that's an example right there of a lack of visual thinking, and that we need the visual thinkers to prevent mistakes.
We've got to get that point across. That's just an incredible point
I
you
am so
continuously make.
concerned. That's why I did this book, Visual Thinking, the hidden gifts of people thinking pictures, patterns, and abstractions. Because I'm so concerned we are screening out our visual thinkers. And then I just found this lady at an autism meeting that her husband builds apartment buildings. He's a visual thinker. Eons ago, we had to get an engineered drawing for all the concrete work for the apartment building. And once you've got that, you just keep reusing it.
Yeah. And you can kind of, like you said, move.
You
We
just keep
can't.
reusing the drawing. And he's really fussy about his foundations. I mean, I don't, that you put the pilings down to bedrock and you don't put pilings down on disturbed ground that was landfill.
But he is a visual thinker that's
He's a visual thinker.
having incredible success in his industry, in his
Now, you
work.
see, and there were some things that I had to do, like when we did the dip fat tanks, I had to get an engineered drawing for the wall specifications of the tank and the rebar placement, which I got it from the USDA. And ever since we just used that drawing, those specifications. Yeah,
And
and then you
that's
can go a whole bunch more. You only need to get those specifications once,
right. And then you
and
can
then you just follow them.
reuse them, repurpose them.
I'm sure that when he did his first apartment building, he had to get the engineering for the concrete columns and the platforms and all the rebar placement. Then once you've got that, you just build another one. You just copy it.
That's just we've got to keep prefacing. We're gonna do the show
But I'm
again.
very concerned that we're screening out the visual thinkers that we need, and I hope they don't build that.
No, we're gonna. I think, like you've said, in the cattle handling part of this industry, you've made a significant difference, and this is just another important sense of mission. You have to get the point across that the visual thinkers are an important part of our industrial complex that we need
But
to
I can
keep.
tell you, these turf garters, it's where you see with the cattle handling, where I really made some of my first inroads is with feed yards and places that were owned by an independent person. They weren't part of a big corporation. So if Mr. O'Neill, that was one of my early jobs, he owned a beef plant, a medium-sized one. That was one of my first beef plant jobs. Or the dip vats. I worked right with the head people that owned those places.
Now you're up against corporate America, but
Now you
you
see, and
made
then the new beef plants were new companies starting up. And then I know the contractor really well, and he does my, you know, it was just a drawing. We changed it. But I see other things where you get these turf garters, egomaniacs, and they feel threatened when you suggest changing something.
But like you said, like you started out with the local owners and the middle and the fairly big business owners, but they were still owners. But you did make it
They were still independent. You see, the Red
right.
River Cattle Company, that was John Wayne's feed yard. But you see, that wasn't part of a big corporation. Now you've got things where you've got one feed yard corporation owns like 15 feed yards.
Well, like that's just a trend, Monsanto or whoever it is buying up a lot of farmland and a lot of big corporate
You see, I
America's
was working
buying.
with when I first started, I was working with independent people that owned some big operations.
Now they've all been bought up. A
Well,
lot of
see, then
time,
I people that I
Monsanto.
work with now, it's just hard because you get these independent people that would be innovative
And they would listen. They want to
and
hear
they
a
would
solution.
listen and and then in Arizona I did 6 dip fat projects, during the 70s, and O'Neill Packing was my first job. They were independent, but I went right to Mr. O'Neill himself. Then other important jobs I did, a lot of them were with independent people. You see, and then you've got some new people coming in. I've worked with them.
But when you're up against big corporate America, like you said, there's a lot of big egos and a lot
Well,
of
yeah, and then
turf
there's the corporate
protectors.
America thing I did with McDonald's, and
McDonald's is a great example of how you can break through.
we broke through, and it was real interesting. I worked very closely with the supply chain management people. We all did everything before legal found out about it. I was just reading some things about countries where you have too many lawyers in government, you never get anything done.
Well, we're there here in America.
Oh,
America is the
we
most
very definitely
litigious
are.
society in the world.
And
So
they're also in Germany. There was discussion about German bureaucracy and the amount of lawyers that were in the government, because a lawyer just wants to block everything. Well, the countries where the more engineers are in charge, they get the high-speed railroad actually built.
kind of an example of like nowadays it's been India gets a lot done simply because they're still not inundated with government bureaucracy. But whereas the U.S. or other big countries, Germany, they're just inundated with
They're inundated with bureaucracy. See, that's part of the problem. And then when it worked with the old thing, little guys innovate. I don't care what field you're in. Little guys innovate. Doesn't matter what field you're in. ChatGPT started out as a little company.
right. Well, but
Little guys
Microsoft
innovate.
started out and Apple started out as tiny companies. Now
They all
they've got
started out as tiny
yeah,
companies. That's right.
yeah,
Steve
garage,
Jobs started out tinkering in his next door neighbor's garage.
right, and Google
And
too.
well, and kids don't, and then Google was getting used servers out of the computer junkyard at the university. They don't call it a junkyard, but it's like they put all the used electronics they don't know what to do with, and he scavenged computers. Facebook started in a dorm room.
Right. And you can even say, like, even for Steve Jobs was a visual thinker for that matter, because when you think of it, he flunked out of college. He was just sitting in on certain classes that were more artistic than anything
He
else.
sat in on calligraphy class,
Calligraphy
and
class.
but he was an artist. Steve Jobs was not a programmer, but an
No.
artist made the interface for the iPhone 4, which was absolutely a breakthrough, and then everybody else copied it. Every
Yeah.
smartphone in the world basically uses some variation of that interface.
Right. He was not a engineer, really. He was not. He was more of I would say, a visual
He
thinker.
was a visual thinker. He
Yeah.
was. And an engineer would make the phone interface so complicated you couldn't figure out how to use it.
And even Sergey Brin talked about his childhood playing with trinkets on his living room floor and stuff. He was a visual
Kids
thinker.
don't tinker anymore.
They
Like
don't.
my nephew does a lot of custom woodworking. He says, I'd love to have some kids come in the shop and do some things with me, but I'm just too scared about lawsuits.
That's the issue is,
Yeah, you see,
that's a
that's
big
the problem.
concern.
Now, I think the big power saws, absolutely not. The kids wouldn't use those. Even in my generation,
No.
we weren't allowed to use circular saws.
But you can use hand saws, you can use
Yeah, hand
glue, you
saws,
can
yeah,
use
use hand
hammers,
saws.
you can use screws and nails and
Well, and I
stuff.
think small, of course, when I was doing all this stuff, we had corded electric drills, but now you've got these little battery operated ones. I think those would be okay.
They would be
But
okay too.
he'd love to have kids come in and do things. And he's worried about, one person suing him and putting him out of business.
I really think we should get past that in a sense that we
We've
really
got to,
include.
because
Yeah.
we need to be exposing kids to mechanical things at a really early age. 18 is almost too late.
No, you're right. At a really early age. I think kids need to tinker
Well,
more, just like you said.
I'm seeing so many kids do fabulous things with Legos and they never graduate to tools. Well, I was using pliers and screwdriver and a hammer in second grade and a little hand saw in fifth grade.
Well, I had wood shop at a young age. I think it was sixth grade, seventh grade. We had
Yeah,
wood
young
shop.
age.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to be exposed. I'm very concerned that visual thinkers are just getting screened out. And all these skilled trades jobs, AI is not going to touch these jobs.
No. Yeah, he's not going to touch a lot of stuff they're concerned about it touching because you still need that human touch for a lot of
Well, you
things.
still need it for computers, and beginner programming jobs are getting phased out. But every business, like let's say the local hospital, the local school district, is going to need an IT person to oversee things.
Absolutely.
That will not go away.
No.
And that's where I'm telling people that are studying computer science now that those are the kind of jobs you want to go for because they're AI proof. That hospital, okay, we got a big hospital here. They've got to have someone in charge of IT. I know another guy that's undiagnosed autistic. He's an IT person for a hospital.
And so I don't see, not to get too deep into the subject, but I don't see AI being the success it's perceived it's going to be. It has enormous limitations. If I know AI is calling me, I hang up. And
Oh,
then
I hang up too. I just hang up. And the other thing I'm wondering about all these data centers, what do we do with them when they get obsolete in 10 or 15 years?
Well, I don't know that they will, just because, like I said, I mean, I'm getting when I call for information, and the first thing that comes on is AI. I try to do my best to get through to a person. I'm not
Well, I
really
do too. I'll go, agent, agent,
agent. Yeah, I just
person. No,
my
I
wife
just
makes
hate.
fun of me because I do that all. I'm just frustrated with the whole idea of I'm talking to a robot. They're not answering my question. And it's like I
I
do the
hate
same
it.
thing, live operator, agent person. And they're going to capitulate because they're going to say, you know what, we're here, whether they're hearing me say it or not, they're hearing a lot of people hang up, and they're not getting certain things resolved.
Well, I can see AI doing it when AI doesn't hallucinate, when it works on very narrow things like discovering a drug or discovering a new material science thing. That's where it's going to really shine because it doesn't hallucinate because it's only allowed to look at chemistry stuff and nothing else.
Right, that may be a strong suit of it.
And that is
Absolutely.
a strong suit. That is going to be a very strong suit where it goes into, okay, you only can look at chemistry stuff and your purpose is to come up with a new diabetes drug.
And then
That's
that very well, just like the deductive reason, it's just going to keep going step by step by step by step. It's gonna take
it
over
only
that
goes
sort of
into the
thing.
chemistry stuff and nothing else.
Right, right. And that is going to be a big industry
And that's going to be a
disturber.
big thing. Um, so there's some things that it's going to do really well, especially when it does
Absolutely, but
something
the way they're
very specific thing. It tends to hallucinate when it doesn't know the answer and then just makes stuff up.
or gets frustrated and drops the project or drops the pursuit of the answer. And
There's been problems with young people with mental health issues talking to AI with bad results.
oh, I can see that too. That's
Some very
concerning.
bad results.
That's concerning.
No, I think it's a huge concern.
Right. Well, Temple, this has been just an incredible conversation. I know you have a busy schedule. We talked about keeping it within, I think we've even gone past
No, it's
that.
all right. We've got it, and I have to go at 11:30 because we're going out to, I'm going out with a friend, and we're going to go see the Avatar movie. So
Oh, nice. Enjoy it. I want to go
yeah,
see that. My
that's
son
what we're
just
going
saw
to
the
do.
new Zootopia, and I was kind of jealous I missed it because I love that movie. But enjoy the movie today.
Yep, that's what we're going to do. And I got to meet for lunch at a taco place, and then a place called Fuzzy's, and then we're going to go to the movie. So,
You're going to have a great day. Thank you. And Happy New Year, Temple. And
all
Merry
right,
Christmas. I
same
didn't see.
same to you, and it's really really good talking to you.
Let's do it again because we have great conversations. I love our conversations. Let's
No,
do it
and
again.
so the whole thing about losing our visual thinkers. This is my big concern right now, and the thing that I'm spending a great deal of my time on.
I want to stay on that because education is my thing, and I want to stay on that topic of not losing, of getting to the point where visual thinkers are being embraced like they should be, because like
You
we
see, it's a
just
different
said,
way of thinking, and I think the math. You see, I think one of the reasons the math thinkers are pushing so much algebra, they think you need that for thinking, but that's not how I think. Like when I go back to that airport picture, it was plastered on the wall, probably like 6 foot big, and stuck on a construction wall. And I go, something's wrong with that. And then I took a picture of it, but I knew it wasn't right. And then I get back to the gate. I go, those planes aren't going to be able to back out.
now could you imagine if so many more people did just that? Could you imagine what a better place, how better roads would be designed, how better airports would be designed
Oh,
if more
Denver,
people did
I
that?
hate the way the exits are designed in Denver because when the traffic's really awful, I like to stay in the right-hand lane and just take it slow. You can't do that in Denver. You get forced off on the exits because they're laid out wrong.
Well, that happens in Florida too, actually. That's right. It does. And you're literally veering to the left when there's people right next to you because you
Well, and
just
I have to keep
realized
moving over because let's say I want to go down 6 exits. If I just stay in the right lane, I get forced off on an exit.
into a
So I've
whole
got to
nother direction.
move over and stay out of that right-hand lane because they're laid out wrong, and I just despise it.
I go through that every day. I literally have to shift over because I realized the right lane was my best lane until I'm realizing I'm going to wind up getting forced off the
But
road that
then
I.
if I stay in the right lane, I'm going to get forced off and go on the wrong exit.
Yes.
I've got to keep moving over. Then you go somewhere else or laid out right. You can just stay in the right lane and take it slow.
Yep. I
That's what
have
I
that.
like to do.
That's not just Denver, I assure you. That's Florida, very much Florida. And I
So,
just think, though, just like you said, when you looked at that picture, you saw this issue. And I just wish there were more people that could see the projected picture on it. Because in Florida, they post what they're doing, like on a picture on a billboard. When you're driving by it, you see the future project. If somebody looked at it and said, no, this is absolutely wrong, we need to do it this way, we would be better off.
well, and the thing with the airport, if they actually built that, what they end up having to do is you just wouldn't use the jet bridges on the one side, and you'd end up taking off and selling them.
Right.
And then you just use the gates on just one side of the finger. On the other side, maybe you could load a few small planes walking out in the tarmac on that side. Might have enough room. I'd have to look at it really carefully
But
because
you'd still lose a lot of.
when I first started loading designing loading ramps, we got a semi out there, and I want to see how much space I need to put in front of a ramp so the worst drivers can back in. It's 200 feet.
Yeah. So, right. You have to figure on the worst because the.
I don't want to have like we have this loading ramp, horrible loading dock for one of our pharmacies, and they have to jackknife the truck at the cab at a 90-degree angle to get the trailer in there. No, that's not how to do it.
No. No, that's and like you said, you really would you in order to do it that way, you would need a really experienced driver, and you not only
Well,
you don't always
you
have
have to one thing I learned, you got to design stuff for the average driver.
right
Average people. You
or
have to
less than
design
average,
things
really.
for the average people, not the expert people. I remember one time because I wrote about aircraft stuff in visual thinking, and I was talking to this experienced test pilot on a plane, and he says, "Well, I'm just turn the automation off. I'll just fly the airplane." we were on a trip back from London. He slaps the headphones on. We get to Denver, and I said, I got to design it for the average pilot, not you. And he says, you're right.
Because he's ready to go, but not everybody's prepared like him.
But you have to design things for the average people, not the experts.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, I probably better get going, but it's been wonderful.
You gotta enjoy Avatar. Enjoy your taco lunch.
Well, we're gonna have this many long. It's 3.5 hours long.
Well,
they have an intermission.
I'm
long movie that they had. I saw they had an intermission.
That's been a while. I haven't done a movie with an intermission in years. When I was a kid, I think there was once or twice we've done that. But enjoy that today. I'm really thankful you came on the show, Temple Grandin. This is the Chair Across the Aisle podcast, and I'm gonna be I'll be reaching out to you soon to do it again. So.
All right. Well, great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Temple. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You're very welcome, and I'm going to leave the meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.